My new roommate turned out to be my high school best friend, and my first crush gay love story. Hello, everyone. Before we step into today's story, I have one small favor to ask. Please hit the subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new story from our channel. It only takes a moment, it is completely free, and it is one of the best ways you can support us as we continue bringing you more heartfelt, dramatic, and emotional love stories. Every bit of your support truly means more to us than you know. And before we begin, tell me where you are watching from today. Leave your city or country in the comments below. I always love seeing how far our stories travel. Thank you so much for being here. Now, let us return to our main character and begin his story. Of all the doors in Denver, mine had to open to the one person I'd spent 9 years trying not to miss. Noah Bennett stood frozen in the apartment hallway, one hand wrapped around the handle of a battered suitcase, the other holding a cardboard box labeled kitchen, although it contained exactly 1 coffee mug, 3 books, and enough bad decisions to qualify as a personality trait. Rain tapped against the windows behind him, turning the late afternoon sky gray, and for several impossible seconds, Noah forgot why he was there. The man standing inside the apartment had changed. Of course he had. 9 years could do a lot to a person. Luke Harrison was taller than Noah remembered, his dark brown hair shorter, his shoulders broader beneath a faded navy sweatshirt. But his eyes were exactly the same warm hazel Noah had spent most of high school pretending not to notice. Luke stared at him. Noah stared back. Somewhere downstairs, a door slammed. Neither moved. "Noah," Luke finally said. One word. That was all it took. Suddenly Noah was 17 again, sitting beside Luke in the school parking lot after football games they never actually watched, sharing fries from a paper bag while Luke complained about chemistry homework. He remembered late-night phone calls, terrible movies, inside jokes nobody else understood, and the summer afternoon when Luke had fallen asleep beside him on a dock, and Noah had realized, with terrifying clarity, that his best friend had become his first crush. A crush Noah had buried so deeply, he had almost convinced himself it belonged to somebody else. Almost. "Luke," Noah managed. Brilliant. 9 years apart, and apparently his vocabulary had been reduced to 1 syllable. Luke blinked, then gave a small, disbelieving laugh. "You're my new roommate?" Noah looked down at the address on his phone, as if Denver might suddenly admit this was an administrative prank. "Unless there are 2 apartment 4BS and I've chosen the emotionally catastrophic one." Luke laughed again, softer this time, and the sound hit Noah with an uncomfortable familiarity. "Come in. You're getting soaked." Noah stepped inside because standing in the hallway forever was probably against the lease. Luke reached for the box, and Noah instinctively tightened his grip. Their hands nearly touched. Ridiculous. Completely ridiculous. They were adults. Grown men did not short-circuit because an old friend almost touched their fingers. "I've got it," Noah said too quickly. Luke's expression shifted for half a second, something uncertain passing behind his eyes. "Right? Sure. Great." 30 seconds into their reunion and Noah had already made things weird. Possibly a personal record. Luke showed him the apartment, speaking carefully about cabinet space, laundry days, parking permits, all the wonderfully ordinary things 2 strangers might discuss. Except they weren't strangers. That was the problem. Noah knew Luke used to sing badly when cooking. Luke knew Noah hated sleeping with closet doors open. They had once known everything about each other, until somehow they knew nothing at all. Noah carried his box toward his new bedroom, determined to survive the evening with dignity. Then he passed the living room bookshelf and stopped. Between a row of novels and an old ceramic planter sat a tiny wooden lighthouse, chipped along one side and painted an embarrassingly bright blue. Noah recognized it instantly. He had made it for Luke in high school shop class and nearly thrown it away because one window was crooked. Luke had kept it. For 9 years. Behind him, Luke went completely silent. Noah stared at the little lighthouse, his heartbeat suddenly louder than the rain. "You still have this?" Noah kept staring at the little wooden lighthouse as if it had personally betrayed him. "You kept it?" he asked. Luke slipped his hands into the pockets of his navy sweatshirt. "Apparently," Noah turned toward him. Apparently? Luke, I made this when I was 17. One side is crooked. The paint looks radioactive. And I am pretty sure Mr. Callahan gave me a C out of pity. It has character. It has structural problems. Luke smiled. And there it was again. That painfully familiar expression that made 9 years feel less like time and more like a door somebody had accidentally left open. Noah picked up the lighthouse carefully. A tiny H was still painted near the bottom, because Luke had once joked that every lighthouse needed the first letter of its owner's last name. Noah remembered giving it to him after school and pretending it meant nothing. Back then, pretending had been his greatest talent. Why did you keep it? Noah asked. Luke's smile faded into something quieter. Because not everything from back then was something I wanted to lose. The words landed gently, which somehow made them harder to ignore. Noah looked at him, searching for an explanation Luke did not offer. So naturally, Noah did what he had always done when emotions became dangerous. He made a joke. Good. I was worried you kept it as evidence for a future lawsuit. Luke laughed and took the lighthouse from him, placing it back on the shelf with surprising care. They spent the next hour establishing roommate rules. Noah got the left side of the refrigerator. Luke claimed Tuesday nights for laundry. Neither cared about the thermostat as long as nobody turned the apartment into what Noah called an indoor Florida. It almost felt normal. Almost. Then Luke opened a kitchen cabinet and pulled out a box of cinnamon cereal. Noah stopped unpacking.
No.
Luke glanced over. What? You still eat that? Luke looked at the box, then at Noah. Actually, I bought it yesterday. Noah narrowed his eyes. You hate cinnamon cereal. I remember somebody who did not. Silence. Luke suddenly became extremely interested in reading the nutrition label. Noah felt something warm and inconvenient settle behind his ribs. You remembered my cereal after 9 years? Do not make it weird. I am absolutely making it weird. Then I am returning it. You would not dare. For the first time since Noah had arrived, they laughed without hesitation. It was easy. Too easy. That evening they ate takeout at the kitchen counter because Noah had not unpacked his plates. Luke remembered Noah hated mushrooms. Noah remembered Luke always stole the last French fry and watched him do exactly that. Small things. Stupid things. Dangerous things. Later, Noah stood alone in his new bedroom, surrounded by boxes, listening to Luke moving quietly in the kitchen. He had spent years believing that whatever they had shared in high school mattered more to him than it ever had to Luke. The lighthouse said otherwise. The cereal said otherwise. Every remembered detail whispered otherwise. Then Noah noticed Luke standing in the doorway. Hey, Luke said softly. I know this is strange. Noah gave him a tired smile. That might be the understatement of the decade. Luke nodded, but he did not leave. For what it is worth, I am glad it is you. Noah's humor disappeared. Luke held his gaze for one long second, then walked away. Noah sat slowly on the edge of his bed, staring at the empty doorway. 9 years ago, he had been terrified that loving Luke would cost him his best friend. Now Luke was 20 feet away, under the same roof, remembering things Noah had convinced himself were forgotten. And suddenly Noah had a much more frightening question. What if the past was not finished with either of them? By the end of Noah's first week in the apartment, he had discovered something deeply inconvenient. Living with Luke was easy. Not awkward easy. Not polite roommate easy. It was the dangerous kind of easy that made Noah forget there had been 9 years between them. On Saturday morning, Noah walked into the kitchen and found Luke staring beneath the sink with the expression of a man personally offended by plumbing. Should I call someone? Noah asked. Luke glanced. I can fix it. You said that 20 minutes ago. I am developing a strategy. You are sitting on the floor holding a wrench. That is part of the strategy. Noah laughed before he could stop himself. An hour later, they were driving through Denver to a hardware store because Luke had finally admitted the mysterious pipe required a part he did not own. They argued about music in the car. Luke insisted Noah's playlists had become depressing. Noah informed him that Luke still listened to songs that belonged at a high school graduation party in 2015. Some things are classics, Luke said. Some things are crimes against speakers. Luke grinned. You used to love this song. I was 17. I also thought wearing 3 bracelets at once made me interesting. You wore 4. Noah turned toward him. Why do you remember that? Luke's smile softened. I remember a lot. There it was again. One harmless sentence carrying far too much weight. Noah looked out the window before Luke could see his face. At the store, they somehow left with the plumbing part, 2 houseplants, a new lamp, and a bright yellow kitchen towel Luke claimed the apartment desperately needed. We came here for one thing, Noah said as they loaded the bags into the car. We got the one thing, and 6 other things. That is called efficiency. Back home, they fixed the leak together, although Noah's primary contribution involved holding a flashlight and offering commentary nobody requested. Afterward, Luke made grilled cheese sandwiches while Noah unpacked the last kitchen box. For a few minutes, the apartment filled with the ordinary sounds of cabinets closing, butter sizzling, and Luke quietly humming. Noah stopped. Luke used to hum exactly like that while studying. Suddenly Noah could see them at 17, sitting at Luke's parents' kitchen table with textbooks open between them, planning futures they assumed would somehow remain connected. The memory should have hurt. Instead, it felt warm. That frightened him more, because this was not high school. Luke was not the boy Noah remembered. He was a man who worked long hours, called his mother every Sunday, bought unnecessary houseplants, and apparently believed yellow towels improved kitchens. Noah was beginning to learn him again, piece by piece. Worse, he wanted to. Luke placed a sandwich in front of him. You disappeared for a second. Noah blinked. Just thinking. Dangerous hobby. I learned from you. Luke leaned against the counter, smiling. Their eyes met, and the room became strangely quiet. Noah realized then that nostalgia was not the problem. He had spent years telling himself Luke mattered because Luke belonged to his past. But the man standing across from him was not a memory. Noah liked his terrible music, his stupid yellow towel, his quiet kindness, his habit of remembering things nobody else did. Noah looked down at his sandwich, suddenly fascinated by bread. This was bad. His first crush had been complicated enough. Falling for Luke Harrison a second time would be catastrophic. Then Luke casually pushed the crispier half of the sandwich toward Noah because he remembered that was the half Noah always preferred, and Noah thought, with complete resignation, oh no. The box appeared on a Thursday evening, carried in Luke's arms like something he had forgotten existed until that morning. Noah was at the kitchen counter answering emails when Luke nudged the apartment door shut with his foot and set the dusty cardboard box beside the couch. What is that? Noah asked. Luke looked at the faded marker across the top. My mother is cleaning out her basement. Apparently, I am no longer allowed to use her house as free storage. Cruel. Heartless. I hope you recover. Thank you for respecting my pain. Noah returned to his laptop, but 10 minutes later Luke was sitting cross-legged on the living room rug, surrounded by artifacts from another lifetime. Yearbooks, concert tickets, a Denver Broncos cap that had somehow survived adolescence, a stack of burned compact discs with titles written in black marker. Noah wandered over despite every survival instinct telling him not to. Please tell me you do not still own the mix I made you. Luke held up a disc labeled Luke's Definitely Not Terrible Road Trip Music. Noah covered his face. Destroy it. Never. I was young. You. Put the same song on here twice. Artistic repetition. Luke laughed and reached deeper into the box. Then his hand stopped. The change was small, but Noah noticed it immediately. Luke pulled out a photograph. For 1 second, neither of them spoke. It was from senior prom. Noah remembered that night too clearly. Luke wore a dark suit with a blue tie. Noah had spent 20 minutes pretending the tie looked ridiculous because admitting Luke looked handsome had seemed emotionally irresponsible. In the photograph, they stood shoulder to shoulder beneath a cheap silver backdrop, smiling like 2 boys completely certain they would remain best friends forever. We look 12, Noah said quietly. You acted 12. You tried to dance. That was dancing. That was a medical mystery. Luke smiled, but there was sadness behind it. Noah reached for the photograph. Luke turned it over too quickly. Too late. Noah had already seen handwriting on the back. Luke's handwriting. Small, uneven, unmistakable. Noah caught only a few words before Luke lowered it. If I ever get brave enough. Noah's chest tightened. What does that say? Nothing. That is definitely not nothing. Luke stood and slipped the photograph into the yearbook. It was something stupid I wrote when I was 18. Noah watched him place the book back inside the box. You are acting suspicious. You are being nosy. We were best friends. Nosy was basically in the job description. Luke looked at him then, and something unspoken passed between them. We were, Luke said. Were. One tiny word. Sharp with 9 missing years. Noah wanted to ask what happened to them. He wanted to ask why Luke disappeared after graduation, why messages became shorter, then rarer, then stopped. Most of all, he wanted to know what 18-year-old Luke had needed courage to do. His phone buzzed on the kitchen counter before he could speak. Noah glanced at the screen. It was an email from the architecture firm where he had interviewed weeks earlier. The position he had assumed was gone was suddenly available again. Better salary. Bigger projects. A real chance to move his career forward. There was only one complication. The job might require relocating after the first few months. Noah looked toward Luke, who was carefully returning the old photographs to the box. Everything okay? Luke asked. Noah locked his phone. Yeah, just work. The lie came too easily. That bothered him. Luke nodded and carried the box toward his bedroom. Noah remained beside the couch, staring at the closed door after Luke disappeared behind it. In the space of 5 minutes, the past had produced a sentence Luke refused to explain, and the future had offered Noah another reason to leave. Somehow, Noah had the uncomfortable feeling those two things were about to collide. The storm arrived on Sunday night with enough rain to turn the Denver windows into sheets of silver, and Noah was halfway through pretending to watch television when the apartment suddenly went dark. Perfect, he muttered. From the kitchen, Luke said, Please tell me you paid your half of the electric bill. Please tell me that was a joke. It was mostly a joke. Noah heard a cabinet open, followed by Luke searching through a drawer. A moment later, warm light appeared as Luke carried 2 battery lanterns into the living room. Prepared for everything, Noah said. I live with you now. Preparation feels responsible. 1 week together and the insults are already back. Some things recover quickly. They ended up sitting near the living room window while rain whispered against the glass. Without television, music, or the usual distractions, the apartment felt smaller, quieter. Luke handed Noah a mug of coffee. Noah took 1 sip and looked at him suspiciously. You remembered. 2 sugars. Too much cream. It is not too much cream. It is basically coffee-flavored milk. Noah smiled into the mug. For a while, they talked about harmless things. Luke told him about work. Noah complained about Denver traffic. They argued over whether the yellow kitchen towel had improved the apartment. Then the conversation slowed, and Noah made the mistake of looking toward the bookshelf. The wooden lighthouse was barely visible in the dim light. Luke followed his gaze. Do you ever think about high school? Luke asked. Noah gave a quiet laugh. That question sounds dangerous. Maybe. Rain filled the silence between them. Luke rested his arms on his knees. Were you happy back then? Noah almost answered automatically. Fine. Mostly. Sometimes. Any safe word would have worked. Instead, perhaps because darkness made honesty easier, he said, Whenever I was with you. Luke went completely still. Noah's heartbeat stumbled. Excellent, he thought. Wonderful. Apparently the power outage had also disconnected the part of his brain responsible for self-preservation. I mean, not every second, Noah added quickly. You were extremely annoying. Luke did not laugh. Noah. The way he said his name made Noah look up. Luke's expression was open in a way Noah had not seen since they were teenagers. There is something I should have told you a long time ago, Noah forgot about the storm. The photograph flashed through his mind. If I ever get brave enough. Luke took a breath. Back then Noah's phone suddenly lit up on the coffee table. The email notification showed the architecture firm's name. Noah grabbed the phone too quickly and turned the screen face down. Luke noticed. Of course he noticed. Important. No. Just work. Another lie. Another tiny door closing. Luke looked toward the window. Whatever courage had appeared in his face disappeared with it. Noah panicked at the silence. Anyway, he said, forcing a laugh. If you were about to confess that you secretly hated my haircut senior year, I already know. History has judged me. Luke smiled, but it was the polite version. Something like that. Noah immediately regretted the joke. He wanted to pull the words back and ask Luke to finish. Instead, he sat there holding cooling coffee while the moment slipped away. Minutes later, the lights flickered back on. The television resumed in the middle of a commercial, bright and noisy and painfully ordinary. Luke stood. I should get some sleep. Luke. He paused. Noah had one chance. Ask about the photograph. Ask what he had almost said. Tell him about the job. Tell him anything true. Good night, Noah said. Luke nodded. Good night, Noah. His bedroom door closed softly. Noah remained by the window, staring at his phone. 9 years ago, he had believed silence was the safest way to protect what mattered. Sitting alone in the suddenly bright apartment, he began to wonder whether silence had been the thing that cost them everything. Noah knew something was wrong when Luke stopped buying cinnamon cereal. It was a ridiculous observation, possibly the least important clue in human history, but 3 days after the storm, the familiar box disappeared from the kitchen cabinet. So did the easy jokes. Luke was still kind, still polite, still Luke, but something had shifted. Their conversations became shorter, careful around the edges, as if both men were walking around a question neither wanted to touch. Then, Wednesday evening, Noah came home and found Luke standing at the kitchen counter with Noah's architecture firm paperwork in his hand. Noah stopped cold. He had printed the offer that morning and apparently left it beneath a grocery flyer. Luke. Luke looked up. They want you to relocate? Noah set down his keys. Possibly. After a few months. How long have you known? Since last week. Luke nodded slowly. Somehow that was worse than anger. You were not going to tell me. I was going to tell you when I decided. Right? Luke placed the paper on the counter. Because that worked so well last time. Noah felt the old wound open before he could stop it. What is that supposed to mean? You know exactly what it means. No, Luke. I actually do not, because 9 years ago you were the one who disappeared. Luke stared at him. I disappeared? After graduation, you barely answered my messages. Then you moved away, and eventually you stopped answering at all. Because you made it very clear you did not want me around. Noah laughed once, without humor. That is unbelievable. Is it? Luke's voice stayed quiet, but the hurt underneath it was unmistakable. You spent our entire last summer pulling away from me. Because I was scared. The words escaped before Noah could catch them. Luke froze. Noah's chest tightened. There it was. Too much truth to take back. Not enough to explain anything. Scared of what? Luke asked. Noah looked away. The answer had lived inside him since he was 17. Of loving you. Of losing you. Of wanting something I thought I could never have. Instead he said, it does not matter. Luke closed his eyes briefly. That is exactly what you did back then. Every time something mattered, you said it did not. Noah's frustration cracked through his defenses. Because the last time I needed you, you left. Silence filled the kitchen. Luke's face changed. Not anger. Something sadder. You really believe that? What else was I supposed to believe? Luke walked toward his bedroom and returned carrying the old yearbook. The prom photograph was tucked inside. He held it for a moment before setting it on the counter between them. I wrote this the night of prom. Noah turned the photograph over. This time Luke did not stop him. The handwriting was faded but readable. If I ever get brave enough, I am going to tell Noah the truth. Maybe then I will finally know if I imagined all of this. Noah read it twice, then a third time. His heartbeat seemed to move into his throat. What truth? He whispered. Luke looked at him with 9 years of unanswered questions in his eyes. I was going to tell you after graduation. Tell me what? Luke swallowed. Then I heard you talking to Mason behind the gym. Noah searched his memory. Luke continued. You said Luke can never know. You said it like the idea terrified you. Noah suddenly remembered that afternoon. The heat, Mason sitting beside him. His own panic spilling into a conversation he had believed was private. Luke gave a small, wounded smile. So I decided I had my answer. Noah stared at him, understanding beginning to form with terrible clarity. Luke, you did not hear the rest. Luke went still. Noah's voice dropped almost to a whisper. You heard one sentence. And for the first time in 9 years, Noah understood that whatever had separated them might never have been rejection at all. Noah could remember the rest of that conversation now with painful precision. Mason had been sitting beside him behind the gym, asking why Noah became strangely quiet every time Luke mentioned college. Noah had tried to laugh it off. Mason had not let him. Finally, Noah had admitted the truth. Luke can never know, because if I tell him I am in love with him and he does not feel the same way, I lose my best friend. Noah looked across the kitchen at Luke and felt 9 years collapse into one unfinished sentence. I was talking about you, Noah said. Luke gave a confused laugh. I know.
No.
You do not. Noah forced himself to keep going.
No joke. No escape.
Mason asked why I was acting weird around you. I told him you could never know because I was afraid. Luke barely moved. Afraid of me? Afraid of losing you. The kitchen became completely still. Noah could hear the refrigerator humming behind him. I had a crush on you, he said. Not some random temporary thing. You were my first real crush, and you were also my best friend, which felt like a spectacularly unfair combination. Luke stared at him. Noah's nerves screamed at him to make a joke. He refused. I thought if I told you, everything would change, so I kept quiet. Luke looked down at the prom photograph. I thought you were ashamed of me. Noah's heart sank. Never. Luke pressed his lips together, eyes shining with disbelief. I spent years thinking I had imagined everything between us. What everything? Noah asked softly. Luke met his eyes. The way you always saved me a seat. The calls that lasted until 2 in the morning. The way you looked at me when you thought I was not paying attention. Noah forgot how to breathe normally. Luke gave a helpless little laugh. I noticed, Noah. I just did not trust myself enough to believe it. He tapped the photograph. That was what I wanted to tell you. I liked you too. Noah stared at him. You what? I liked you. In high school? Yes. Me? Luke almost smiled. There was only one Noah Bennett in our graduating class. I need you to understand that this is an extremely inconvenient time for you to become funny. Luke's smile vanished as quickly as it came. I was terrified too. Then I heard that sentence behind the gym, and I thought I had been wrong. College gave me an excuse to create distance before you could reject me. Noah sat down slowly. The truth was almost absurd in its simplicity. No. Betrayal.
No deliberate abandonment.
2 frightened 18-year-olds had each been waiting for the other to say something first. We lost 9 years because neither of us finished a conversation, Noah whispered. Luke sat across from him. I am sorry. So am I. Noah looked at the old photograph between them. He wanted to mourn those missing years, but something else mattered more. Why did you keep the lighthouse? Luke's eyes softened. Because even when I thought you did not want me that way, you were still the person who made me feel most understood. Noah swallowed. And the cereal? You always smiled when we had it before school. The terrible music? That is just good taste. Noah laughed, and the sound broke something open between them. Not romance. Not yet. Something more necessary. Honesty. Luke reached across the counter, stopping his hand a few inches from Noah's. He did not assume. He waited. Noah closed the distance and rested his hand over Luke's. Nothing dramatic happened. The city kept moving outside. The refrigerator kept humming. But Noah understood something he wished he had known at 18. Silence could protect you from rejection, but it could also protect you from being loved. And this time, he was done letting fear finish his sentences. For several seconds, neither Noah nor Luke moved. Their hands rested together on the kitchen counter, simple and quiet, and somehow that felt more important than every dramatic confession Noah had imagined when he was 18. Luke finally looked down at their hands and smiled. "So what happens now?" Noah let out a nervous laugh. "I was hoping adulthood came with instructions. Mine must have gotten lost in the mail." That made Noah smile, but the unanswered job offer still sat between them, both literally and emotionally. Noah glanced at the paperwork. "There is something else I need to say." Luke nodded. "Okay." Noah pulled his hand back, immediately missing the warmth. "The job is good. Really good. Better pay, bigger projects, the kind of opportunity one have been working toward for years. But after the first few months, they might transfer me to another office." Luke was quiet. Noah hated how quickly fear returned. "Say something. Do you want the job?" Noah blinked. "That is your question?" "It is the important one." "I do not know." Luke leaned against the counter. "Then figure out what you want before you figure out what you think I want." Noah stared at him. Some foolish part of him had expected Luke to ask him to stay. Another part had almost wanted it. "You are not going to tell me not to leave?"
No.
The answer hurt more than Noah expected, and Luke apparently saw it on his face. That came out wrong. A little. Luke stepped closer, careful but certain. "Noah, I lost 9 years with you because we both made decisions based on things the other person never actually said. I am not doing that again. If this job matters to you, I do not want you turning it down because you think you owe me a different ending." Noah looked at him. "And if I leave?" Luke's expression softened. "Then we figure out what that means. Honestly. Together." Something inside Noah loosened. At 18, he had thought love meant holding on as tightly as possible. Luke was showing him something harder and kinder. Love could also mean leaving the door open and trusting someone to choose whether to walk through it. "I do not want our 18-year-old selves deciding this," Noah said. "Good," Luke replied. "They were idiots." Noah laughed. "Terrible communication skills. Questionable fashion choices. Your blue prom tie was a public emergency. You liked that tie." Noah opened his mouth with a denial ready, then stopped. No more hiding behind jokes. "I liked the person wearing it." Luke went still. Noah's pulse quickened, but this time he did not look away. "You were my first crush, Luke." He swallowed. And apparently my feelings did not get the message that 9 years had passed. Luke's eyes softened. "Mine did not either." Noah breathed out slowly. "That sounds dangerously close to another confession. Then maybe I should finish it this time." Luke moved closer, but stopped with enough space between them for Noah to choose. "Can I kiss you?" The question was so simple that Noah nearly laughed at how long they had taken to reach it. "Yes." Luke leaned in and kissed him gently. Nothing rushed. Nothing demanded. It was warm, brief, and somehow sweeter because both of them had finally arrived there by telling the truth. When they pulled apart, Noah smiled before he could stop himself. Luke smiled back. "Worth 9 years." Noah shook his head. Nothing was worth losing 9 years. Luke's expression grew thoughtful. "Then let us not lose another day pretending." Noah looked at the job offer again. Tomorrow he would call the firm. He would ask questions. He would make his decision based on the future he wanted, not the past he regretted. Tonight, though, he reached for Luke's hand again. For once, neither of them needed silence to feel safe. 3 months later, Noah stood in the kitchen at 7 on a Saturday morning, staring at an empty cereal box with the solemn disappointment of a man confronting betrayal. "Luke." From the living room came an innocent, "Yes." Noah held up the box. "You finished it." Luke appeared around the corner carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "I bought another one." "Where?" Luke pointed toward the cabinet. Noah opened it and found 2 new boxes waiting inside. That is excessive. You complained for 45 minutes the last time we ran out. I was expressing reasonable concerns about household preparedness. Luke handed him a mug. 2 sugars. Too much cream. Perfect. Noah smiled despite himself. The apartment looked different now. The yellow kitchen towel had multiplied into 3, which Noah considered evidence that Luke could not be trusted with decorative authority. The houseplants from their hardware store trip occupied the windowsill. The crooked wooden lighthouse still sat on the bookshelf. Some things had changed. Some had simply found new meaning. Noah had accepted the architecture job, but not exactly as originally offered. Instead of silently accepting a future transfer, he had called the firm and asked questions. Then more questions. After several conversations, they agreed that Noah would remain based in Denver while traveling occasionally for larger projects. Luke had never told him what decision to make. That mattered. Noah stayed because Denver was where he wanted to build his life, not because fear had convinced him that leaving and losing were the same thing. Their relationship had developed the same way. Slowly, honestly, sometimes awkwardly. Their first official date had been at a neighborhood Italian restaurant where Luke spilled water across the table and Noah laughed so hard the couple beside them started laughing too. Their second date was better. Their third ended with them sitting in the car for an hour talking about everything they should have said years ago. They were learning that getting a second chance did not mean recreating the first one. Noah was not 18 anymore. Neither was Luke. They had careers, habits, scars from ordinary disappointments, and separate dreams. Loving each other now meant learning the people they had become. Later that afternoon, Noah was looking for an old tax document. When he found the senior prom photograph inside Luke's yearbook, he turned it over. The faded sentence was still there. If I ever get brave enough, I am going to tell Noah the truth. Maybe then I will finally know if I imagined all of this. Noah stared at it for a long moment. Then he carried the photograph into the living room. Do you mind if I add something? Luke looked up from the couch. To what? Noah showed him the picture. Luke's expression softened. Go ahead. Noah found a pen and carefully wrote beneath Luke's 18-year-old handwriting. You got brave enough eventually. He handed the photograph over. Luke read the sentence, smiled, and took the pen. Under Noah's words, he added his own. So did you? Noah sat beside him. Their shoulders touched. Outside, Denver glowed beneath a clear blue evening sky. Traffic moving along the street below. Neighbors coming home. Ordinary life continuing everywhere around them. Do you ever wish we had figured it out sooner? Noah asked. Luke considered the question. Sometimes. Me too. Luke looked at the photograph. But I do not want to spend the years we have regretting the years we lost. Noah let those words settle. That was the lesson neither of them had understood when they were young. You could not rewrite yesterday by punishing today. You could only become more honest. With the time still ahead, Noah rested his head lightly against Luke's shoulder. We need a rule. Another roommate rule? More important. Luke waited. Noah smiled. Whatever happens next, we say it. Even when it is uncomfortable. Even when we are scared. Luke held out his hand. Deal. Noah took it. 9 years earlier, they had loved each other quietly enough to lose each other. This time, they chose something different. Not perfect timing. Not a perfect future. Just honesty, courage, and the daily choice to stay present. And Noah finally understood that home was never really an apartment, a city, or an old wooden lighthouse on a shelf. Sometimes home was simply the place where you no longer had to hide what was in your heart.